The Xbox 360 digital storefront is now closed. Microsoft told us a while ago that they were going to make that move July 29th, and they indeed did that. Which means now any Xbox Live Arcade games that were specific to that storefront are gone, and you're also at the mercy of the second-hand used market for any full games that maybe had a digital equivalent before. You could fall back on that and get it cheaper. Not the case anymore, so we'll see how things go with eBay and Amazon prices on used Xbox 360 games. But wouldn't you know it, when the platform holder shuts things down, the community rises up and creates a whole new store for us to take a look at. And this is very recent, actually as recent as last week, with the Xbox 360 Homebrew store now available. And yes, that means you yourself can install it on the right kind of console, and that's what we're going to look at here today. First, though, I did want to take a look at what happened here with the 360 after the store shut down, because the dashboard looks way different. I did a video just sort of going over the Xbox 360 store ahead of its shutdown, and I'm glad I did that. Actually, I'll have a link down below. It's just a video where I sort of went through it and checked it out, because now comparing it, as you can see, from what it was a few weeks ago to what it is now, a lot of the dashboard is just completely stripped out to where there's just a few options at the top. And interestingly enough, the avatar store still works, which is strange, because that they even still have purchases and stuff apparently you can make for different clothing and themed items. But nonetheless, the digital storefront is gone, and it took with it a good chunk of that dashboard. But as I mentioned, with that store shutting down, we have the Homebrew store now starting up, and this was actually listed over on Retro RGB from Durf, who appears to have actually created this and set it up so that other people can create their own directories or repositories and host all kinds of files. Now, I will say, for this one in particular, they have set up, they have it for like Homebrew, like applications, emulators. They do not have it set up at this time for officially released games, apps, or other copyrighted content, and that's not something they intend to be including here. But of course, they can't control what other people will host with their own setup and repository. And actually, they show you how you yourself can do that. So I'm sure there will be others that are set up, as there is a specific option that you have in this Homebrew store to input your own URL and basically tell the program where to go and where to look for files. But as it stands now, it's actually pretty easy to use, and I have my 360 over here, so I figured we'd try it out. In order to install the Homebrew store, it's very easy. You hit the back button and then go to scripts. You have this repo browser here, and then you go to, I believe it's utility scripts, and in there you'll find Homebrew store. Now, since I installed it, it appears there is version 2.0, so it's actually updated, which is interesting. Okay, so originally I had 1.0, now we have 2.0 here. I want to point out, I actually installed this Homebrew store version 1.0 like 2 days ago, so they've already made seemingly a meaningful update to it to 2.0. So let's see what we have here. Okay, so here we are in the Homebrew store version 2. We have Homebrew apps, games, emulators, dashboards, other, and then enter URL is basically what you would use if you want to then point it at a different repository. So let's say someone down the road eventually creates their own and then shares it around and hosts all kinds of files. You would be able to access it in that way. And let's be real, at this point, because this is set up and it's just out there for the community to use, I assume this will go a similar path to what we've seen with systems like the 3DS and the Wii U and the Vita, where eventually there is a way for you to just download games from your system by just calling out to different servers and stuff that are hosting these files. And a certain archive out there, of course, that already has a lot of them. So I wouldn't be shocked if we get to that point. But again, it's important to note that they are not hosting, specifically on the Homebrew store that they have provided here, any kind of copyrighted materials. Instead, if we go to like Homebrew apps, they do have all kinds of different applications that you would normally have to go between your PC and your Xbox 360 with like a USB flash drive or an external hard drive and load it up that way. This is one of the major benefits of having a store like this, is you can just do everything right here from the console. And they have like little Homebrew games as well. Here's what's this, Pac-Man Colors. Let's install this. An original Pac-Man clone with some neon lights and grid that makes the game slightly more difficult. Okay, we'll install that. Let's see how See how long this takes. Has to download, of course, then it has to unpack and install it. And that wasn't too bad, about a minute or so for that one. They also have a claw machine. They have Quake 3, SDL Quake. There are also a bunch of dashboards that you can pick, which I guess is nice if you want to jump between them. I've never really swapped up the dashboard or anything I've been using here, but technically you can, launch a dashboard from within the dashboard. I've done that on the original Xbox a few times because there were certain dashboards that would see, for example, expanded RAM and that sort of thing. But in this case, I'm mostly going to be looking at the emulators and then the apps. The games are cool and they're fun to kind of throw on there, but the emulators, of course, you may want to load up some of your ROMs, and they even have RetroArch, it looks like, here at the top. But then you can also go through and pick out, here we go, Visual Boy Advance 360, which it is still really fun to see the Xbox 360 play things like, I don't know, PlayStation, free PSX. There's also like Sega Genesis, Super Nintendo, PPSSPP. So again, it's fun to see it play some of these Sony or PlayStation games or even Sega games just here through an emulator. So you just go through and pick any of these out. You know what I will grab? I'll grab the PlayStation emulator. I will say the idea of having a repository you can access for all the Xbox Live arcade games that are just completely erased at this point, that would actually be a really cool thing to see here. I know people will, go back and forth in the idea of having like these copywritten products and stuff that are just available to you through a menu like this. But it's pretty clear that there's really no other way to access these otherwise, other than through like a certain archive, of course, that's available online. So just because of that and the fact that the companies don't want to sell them to you at all, it's like, well, okay, what else do you expect people to do? So I think it'd be cool to have, like, we have Homebrew apps, games, emulators, dashboards, other, and then just an entire Xbox Live arcade tab here. So after a quick restart, should be able to start finding some of these things that I downloaded in here. There's Pac-Man Colors with no cover. Maybe I can get it to populate the cover by just downloading. I also did one here for Quake 3, but it seems to be kind of broken with like the title for it and stuff. So we'll see. We also have the PCSX R360, the PS1 emulator, which the box art for that came up, so that looks pretty good, I think. So there's RetroArch as well that I grabbed. I think I'm just going to go ahead and launch. Let's try Pac-Man Colors. Let's see what happens when we launch this one. Came right up. No issues there. So it looks like Unity port for the 360. Oh, this looks very weird. Like visually speaking, right now looking at it, it says I can also change. No, you can change to the classic style. I feel like you would get this version though to play like this different style, this different look. I assume that's why people play all the different Pac-Man games, because they're just, some of them look really cool. Like they take advantage of some of the newer visual features you can do with different systems. And I remember back then I played more Geometry Wars, and that looked really crazy on screen, some of the stuff they would do there. But this looks kind of cool. It's definitely a unique looking Pac-Man game. And again, it's part of that 360 Homebrew store, so you just go on there, download it, and play it. The music is good. Good kind of Pac-Man remix. So it's classic Pac-Man. It's nothing too crazy, but it seems like a pretty fun port. I figure I'd try PCSXR360, that PS1 emulator. I did drop a couple of games on the USB stick here. Let's see if we can find it. I think I also had a bunch of other games on there. Yeah, I just had a bunch of random stuff on here, but you can scroll through the folders. Here we go. PS1. Yeah, I put Symphony of the Night and I put Spyro 2 Ripto's Rage on here. Let's go with Ripto's Rage. It's more of a 3D based game to see how it plays here. I will say I feel like I have so many other ways to emulate even like PlayStation 1, 2, GameCube, Wii, whatever, that I don't know if I would necessarily get an Xbox 360 to then just emulate some of these games, but I guess the idea of it at least functioning. Oh, the audio sounds like it's kind of slow. It sounds like it's kind of slow right now, just based on the audio, which we'll see here in a minute. Yeah, it is running a bit slower. Again, though, I would probably just play it on a number of other devices I have access to. But this is just one of the emulators that I downloaded here. There could even be a better one out there for the 360 at this point. But I will say the idea of being able to just download emulators from that store and it automatically loads and populates onto your dashboard, which I didn't really have to do anything. I just loaded it up, put a USB stick in there with a couple of my my PS1 games loaded, and started it up. I haven't even messed with any kind of potential configuration files or changes in the settings, which I know with a lot of emulation, typically you would have to do that, just try to find the sweet spot for performance. At least here, just out of the box performance isn't great for the 360, but I guess it's also kind of funny to see a PS1 game, so a Sony PlayStation game, running on a 360 here. Just probably not the ideal way to do it. I would buy an Xbox 360 that's modded, probably to play, yes, Xbox 360 games, and actually even original Xbox games, because with the whitelist hack you can do for it and play a number of them, it actually runs really well. But looking at this, it's less about the here and now for this homebrew store and more about what's possible for the future, because as soon as something like this really gets put out there for the community to get their hands on, that's usually when it starts to build, sometimes exponentially. So I'm curious if this is something that catches on, and the only reason I say that is because the Xbox 360 homebrew community doesn't seem to be as active as even like the original Xbox, which has a massive community behind it. This is a bit smaller, but maybe something like this, along with, well, the 360 store itself getting shut down, kind of lights a fire under that community, and they start trying to build with something like this homebrew store. But let me know what you guys think about this one down below. Yes, you do need a modded system. A reset glitch hack system is preferable like this. So keep that in mind. It's not necessarily something you're just launching right away on a stock system, but I think now more than ever is a good time to really look into maybe picking one up. Thanks guys for watching, and I'll see you next time.